Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, welcome back to the podcast and the YouTube channel. This is a different type of a video, right? This is something that I've been doing once a month for the past, really since the pandemic of COVID started. And I got the camera set up differently. There's no green screen behind me if you're watching on YouTube. It's over there in the corner of my new office that I'm currently putting together. I mean, you could probably see some of the stuff we got going on over here. Got some nice little wall art starting up. I like that. I got the camera on the webcam. But I thought it would just be more of a casual conversation these anyways, so I don't have to put anything together. I'm pretty much just discussing looking back at my previous month in business as a content creator in the fantasy sports space, as well as I dabble in some other areas on some minor projects that don't have to do anything with fantasy sports for about 10% of my income or so. So it's a little bit different there, but nothing major. It's like one or two projects at most a month. But I do want to just kind of overlook. We've been doing it. I want to be doing it every single month, especially when I look back and seeing how I kind of handled the pandemic. And as we've talked, if you've been following this series, my pinned video, at least right now on my YouTube channel, is how I make $100,000 and really close to $200,000 potentially this year. COVID's probably going to impact that. If there's a football season, it shouldn't, but we shall see. But with that being said, it's not to be clickbaity. These are not to be clickbaity. These are for just me. I post them on YouTube so that I don't have to archive them on, I have some like flash drives and stuff, but I don't want to archive them, right? I'm somebody who likes to have like no clutter. So I want them on YouTube. I think they'll help at least one person. It seems like they've helped people. I think they've helped people. And really that first one, I would say start there to get my whole background, how I'm doing this, what different streams, I guess more in depth than what this video will do, and just really what started it for me, why I wanted to do it. What you see on the screen right now is just my month of June 2020. We're in July 2020 as I record this. So a lot of my income is like for the next, is like a month out, right? Like, so for any work I'm doing right now, a lot of my clients, a lot of this stuff, I won't even get to access for 30 days. That's normal in business. Rarely do you get paid the same exact day. Even if you're doing like a job directly just for one person, normally you'll get paid 2 weeks later or 4 weeks later because that's how payroll systems usually work. It's very hard for many companies, unless you're in a really good cash situation, which the way my business operates right now, it's just me. I would like to change that, maybe hire a contractor or two to help me out. I could probably talk about that later on in this video. Right now, it's just me basically. So I want to be able to go out and I want to be able to have no real expenses. And now expenses are starting to come up the last few months, but that's because I just launched a website and I'm trying to enhance that website. So those are like one-off expenses. But for the most part, like I could pull in like this past month, just to look, I'll break down into this, but just to kind of talk about it, this past month in income, gross income before taxes, before expenses, we made about $12,400. Now, if you're just new to the show, that's a lot lower than what I was making. It's still very good, especially for the NFL offseason. NFL, for my first year in business, those months were making between like $15,000 and $20,000. We were making the highest we saw was February, I believe, when the XFL was still going on. Obviously, NBA and the NFL was just ending with the Super Bowl, made about $19,000. Now, I think that trend was going to continue. I think we were going to continue to see, especially with the XFL having another month or two before COVID, obviously the NBA into the playoffs. And now right now would have normally been my dead season. WNBA, MLB, and NFL prep would have been maybe the things I tackled. Really wasn't planning on covering MLB. Not too much of a fan, or at least I love the MLB DFS side. Not really a fan of the MLB itself. Gets a little bit boring for me personally. Now, the dip hasn't been felt that much for me. I mean, I'm a single person. I have a girlfriend, but I live in an apartment. I have no expenses. I just paid off my student debt. And I actively tried to keep my expenses low. So when this happens, honestly, between my personal expenses being a little bit over $1,000 a month with rent, food, any subscription services I use, my business expenses that I have to pay every single month, not counting taxes, just expenses, subscriptions and stuff. It's like email marketing, podcast hosting. It could be honestly like $100 a month if I wanted to run this business. So yeah, obviously when COVID comes in, it's very scary, but having a security deposit in place, just having enough money, like literally a few $1,000s a month would have been enough for me to get by on. And it was much more than that, thankfully, because some sports stuck around, people's interest in wanting to help support me continued as I continue to make my content. So I feel like we're out of that right now. The NFL, whatever happens with that season, fingers crossed that it goes on. It won't drastically, it will obviously suck. I guess it will be a drastic impact if it doesn't go off. For many people in the industry, probably wipe out a lot of people, but it would not wipe out me because of where my current expenses are. My debt to equity ratio is zero debt. So it's all equity, right? Which is very rare in business, but that's what happens when you operate an online content business and you currently, at least right now, don't have any employees or don't even have any contractors. So at the end of the last video for these monthly business reviews, I pretty much said like I'm declaring this the stoppage point, right? The stoppage point of the losses unless something out of nowhere comes back up that COVID's really scary again and we don't have anything to counteract it. Like even if there's some other shutdown, we now have at least some sort of idea of what to expect. We also have months and months of research on this already to have some sort of preventable measures. You can take that what you want on how good it's been, but I don't think there'll be as much of a head wave as there was. I mean, the PGA Tour had people on the tour having COVID, coronavirus, so did the MMA, and they put the events on. They just had the procedures to take those players and also fighters out of there, the competitors. So that's good to see. Like, that wouldn't have happened right at the start. It didn't happen. Every single league shut down. So it's at least good for my business to see that there are the people in charge of these sports going on right now, especially the PGA that I cover is like my number 2 sport, number 2 gross revenue sport in general, number 1 bet on sport, seeing that they're not going to just shut things down because of a little bit of bad media, a couple people getting it. That's good to see, as long as it's nothing drastic. So I did put a stoppage to it, and it did stop. Now I'll kind of compare right here. I believe we might be able to fit both of them on the screen. I'll compare May to June. Right now we're midway through, or about 10 days into July. Things are also trending in the right direction. So in May, now what I want you to focus on is the gross revenue right here, right? Because obviously I have expenses, I have taxes, I put some stuff away for retirement each month, $1,000 as of right now for a house in my personal, that comes out of my personal expenses, what I take from the business. But $1,000 per month into retirement is what I'm doing right now. I'm going to up that at the end of the year. So how it works, I have an SEP, a self-employment pension. I can put in a certain amount, 25% of my revenue, or up to like $58,000. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an accountant. Speak to your accountant or anything. I speak to mine. But that's what I recall. So I can put 25% of what I pay myself from the business. Now, obviously, I have to talk to my accountant about all that. What's the best tax-wise for me? But I'll probably have somewhere around $20,000 at the end of the year, or somewhere around that into retirement, which is going to be good. Obviously, something I really want to prioritize, because making life easier for me in the future and my family and my loved ones and just strangers to do random acts of kindness is something that actually means a lot to me. So 11,426 was the revenue from May. You can go back and see what the streams and the expenses specifically were for that video. Now this month, but you could see I took away a little over 10,400 because I had expenses. So I guess the revenue was actually 11,981. After expenses, it was 11,426. And then after putting 1,000 onto retirement, which is a business expense because I'm paying myself as an employee towards my retirement at that point, it would be 10,426. So this was my after everything, right? But my gross was 11,981. The gross for this past month was 12,435. So like I said last month, I think it's going to be the stoppage. We ended up going up $500 in revenue. But when you look at it, you might say, no, you made less, because I walked away with, like, you can see 10,364 right here above my head. That's like $80 less than what my gross income was last month. Well, that's because my overall expenses were higher. I stopped for 1 month the retirement investment. I just put a pause on it. Nothing major there. I want to always have like a year to 2 years of just an emergency fund. And I had about 10 to 11 months as I was building that up after I just paid off my student debt in April. And I wanted to make sure that I fully funded that before continuing retirement. It is now fully funded for about 13 to 14 months. I personally want to have 2 years into that. That's a lot for many people. If you're working like a 9 to 5 job, something that you think is stable, I would still recommend 9 to 12 months, just me personally. A lot of people say 3 to 6 months. I don't think that I feel that secure with that. But as somebody who's working for himself and never wants to step back foot into a 9 to 5 job, if you give me 2 years to put my mind to something, if sports just vanished off the face of the earth, or DFS and sports betting just vanished and became illegal or something crazy, right? Knock on wood, I don't think that's ever going to happen at this point. But if that did happen, you give me 1 year, I think I can get it done. But after like 6 months, 7 months, you're like, okay, might have to start looking for jobs. You start to take your focus towards something else. It might not work. 2 years, yeah, you give me 2 years to put my head towards something. It took me about 8 to 12 months to get this thing up off the ground, right? I was making videos for a while. So give me 2 years at something I think I could kind of counteract it. So that's why I didn't have the retirement investment here, as you can see right above my head, which we ended up making more money in revenue, but overall gross, we ended up making less because of my expenses. In my expenses this month, I paid a little over $1,000 in website costs. I launched my website. I paid my contractor, who's a friend who's helping with me, a little over, or $1,000 right now, probably more coming his way as we work through the site. So obviously that's a one-time expense that's not normally going to be there. Because last month my expenses were $554. I was still in that COVID craze of I just want to cut my expenses. Felt a little bit more comfortable this month. I don't ever spend, this is the most I've ever spent, I think, on the business, $2,000. If we keep scrolling back, yeah, like normally I'm spending $400 to like $800 a month on my business expenses. And if I really needed to, I can get them down to like $100 to $200 just for my subscriptions. I don't have any employees or anything, like I said. But this month, I mean, $1,200 alone or so just went straight from paying my contractor and paying for some website fees. So that was pretty much it. Everything else was normal. My electric, my Wi-Fi, my email, my podcasting, that's normal every single month. Data access, that's normal every single month. Course hosting. So the only sites that kind of came out of nowhere, expense-wise for me, ended up being the website hosting. The other thing that I'll point out is I'm just changing the way that I report my money right now, just so that I have overall a higher gross, but I know where my expenses are. I wasn't reporting what Patreon's platform fees were. I wasn't recording what some of my my like Stripe fees were, like how much Stripe's taking from me, how much Patreon's taking from me from using their platform, because they tell me my overall number at the end of it. My accountant thought it would be a good idea, and it makes sense now to report my gross and then how much they're taking from me as a cost. It might seem obvious to you right now, but just every single month when I would get paid, they just pay me. So I would just say how much I was getting paid from them as if I was kind of like an employee to Patreon. But at the end of the day, what it really is they're taking their cut off of your top and then they're paying you. So that should count as an expense. So down the road, if I'm ever looking at my expenses and saying, oh, there are other platforms like Patreon, but if I'm ever saying, oh, this platform's just like Patreon, they say I can move everything over pretty easily and it's only going to cost me 2% a month instead of 5% a month. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. So now I have a very clear look at what my gross income and expenses are. So that's another reason why the expenses went up. Like if I just take off this $600 from Patreon, my expenses go down to $1,400. If I pay my normal website costs a month, which maybe is like $100, now you can see I'm down at like $400 in expenses. So they're one-time payments for the most part, just a different way of reporting in general. So yeah, overall the income, what ended up happening was Patreon went back up. More people feel secure about their jobs. Golf comes back, which is a big one. This month that I'm looking at right now, we're only 10 days in, but I'm assuming that the overall Patreons seem like they're automatically going to go up again. Sponsorships went up as well. Actually, sponsorships stayed the same. It kind of went down $500, but that's just because I reported it differently. I had like these exact same partners, but I reported it instead of it being just a straight up like partnership for affiliate reads, and I made it like just an ad read, right? So instead of making it an affiliate that month, I made it a sponsor instead. Affiliates went up. YouTube ad revenue went slightly down like $10, but that's going to at least double now that golf's back. I've been tracking it. Contracting work pretty much stayed the same. But this was also the first month that I launched the website. So I launched the website like second or third week of June. It brought in about $330. What's not pictured here though, this is just how much it brought in directly through the site, people purchasing on the site. I would say about double the amount of people who purchase on the site actually signed up through one of my sponsors, which means I'm going to be getting $100 per person instead of $30. So that's obviously a big difference. So this number realistically, and I don't get paid that for at least 30 to 60 days afterwards. It might be net 60, which kind of stinks, but it is what it is. The company is very profitable. It's not like they're going to lose anything, which means that this number is probably more so going to be like $1,500 that I actually made this month. But again, I don't get paid for 2 months, so that'll go towards my revenue in 2 months. But yeah, it was great. The website launch has been even better. There's been about double the amount of people last month already signed up this month. I'm only 2 weeks in. So that's something that's fantastic. That was a big move in the business, was the website launch, getting to work with more people. Collaborating a little bit more in the space was a big move as well. I want to continue to do that. And, I just want to continue to do these business reviews. So overall, the revenue went up $500, and that's with the end of the month just launching the website. This upcoming month, I think it's maybe going to stay similar, if not go up a little bit higher. We'll have to see. Right now, it is trending to look in a good direction. And then obviously the football months start to come. That's when a lot more sponsorships, like my sponsorships, are starting to come back around because they've had a couple months off. There's actually sports and golf and MMA being big ones, and even NASCAR right now to bring in some money for some of these DFS and fantasy sites. And with football on the horizon, a lot of those football sites are going to start to come out of the quote unquote woodworks now and reach out to me for potential offerings, because although my sponsorships have looked nice, like $3,500 per month or so, during the NFL season, those were like $7,000, $8,000, right? Patreon was like $10,000. So now that my overall following is up to like almost 23,000 subscribers, when I started the NFL season last year, it was like 4,000. So my revenue per month was like 7,000. It's 6 times that by then. So I think if there's an NFL season and everything goes good, we should still be able to hit like our 200,000 goal as a business for myself this year. What I mentioned earlier was that I want to start hiring contractors. I don't know the exact thing that I want to do. I've tried to reach out to my cousin, my brother. My brother has a lot of good skills in graphic design and video editing, but I want to reach out to somebody that has experience in this space, knows this space very good. So when they're editing something or they're even on camera doing a personality for a show once a week, it'll actually make sense. Like they don't have to seem nervous or they seem like they're just reading off of a script. Like they know what they're doing. They know the information they're talking about. They feel confident on camera. Right now I do a ton of content per week, not just on my site, but I want to even guest appearance more. That's what kind of builds your following and makes you more known to others. And also just, it's fun to collaborate with other creators. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. At some point in my future, I would like to kind of open up either by myself or with other creators, wherever I am at that point, wherever I want to settle down. Right now I'm in North Carolina. Maybe I'll stay here. Maybe I'll open up here. I don't know. But some sort of a hub where people can collaborate, a nice kind of trendy office type place, but nothing like the offices you're thinking of, just more of a Silicon Valley-esque vibes, but not even as serious. Silicon Valley people don't think they're serious there. I worked there for a summer. They're very laid back. They don't work much, but people are very serious about their craft in terms of being competitive. So just more of a casual environment. But that's something down the road, depending on if this takes off and continues to do as well it has. Sports betting is somewhere where I want to continue to try and think about how to create content there. I just put like my betting cards from golf up on Twitter just because that's fun. I think people like seeing that, but I'm not charging people for bets. The thing is, with prop betting, you can definitely have an advantage. But when you charge people for sports bets, there is a big vig that you're paying to the bookies. And for the most part, a lot of those markets are solved unless you are grinding like the Monday odds boards in sports, right? Especially in the NFL where there's so many wagers being placed. It's like the stock market. The prices become pretty efficient pretty quickly. So it's almost unethical for me to charge for that type of a content. The way that you make money through the sports betting, at least that I see it for where I'm set up, is I just make content on YouTube for free. And I get some of these sites, whether it's sports books or whether it's just DraftKings, they pay you to just promote their sports book, whatever it is. As long as you feel comfortable doing that, you actually use it. You should know and use the products and services that you're actually promoting. Otherwise, it's kind of unethical in that regard too. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good way to go about it, rather than saying buy my picks, like right, rather than going Vegas Dave or whatever other shumps are out there trying to sling some of their picks, right? It doesn't really make any sense at that point. They're just as good as your little brother. They're just as good as the coin that you can flip. To be completely honest with you, so don't buy anybody's Vegas picks, even if they're saying they're 18-1 in their last certain amount of months. That's either a lie, it's either true and it's a really good stretch, and like historically they're negative losers, right? Because if you're betting 500 times, you'll probably go on an 18-1 streak, or 5,000 times, you'll probably go on an 18-1 streak at some point. But what is your overall bets, right? Those types of things. So don't be fooled by that. There's so many Joe Blows out there that I've read books. There's probably less than 100 profitable long-term sports bettors on the planet. And I guarantee you the far majority, if not all of them, are not selling their picks. So most of the people selling them are not profitable. So that's where the sports betting side of it becomes a little bit difficult to look at, but that's future business stuff. I actually have written up on that whiteboard back there as I try and put together this office. Got a bunch of lights, soundproof stuff in front of me. It's pretty cool coming together. But I actually have a business idea that just says fantasy sports business podcast, or just sports business podcast, because I just want to talk to, whether it's athletes about branding and imaging, or whether it's other people that are doing exactly what I'm doing and just talking about business and strictly business. Because look, I run a fantasy sports content business and I love fantasy sports, but if you tell me where I am 10 years from now, fantasy sports might not even be in the cards then. There's a good chance it is, based on like how quickly I've gained the following and how much I enjoy it. But I don't know, in 10 years from now, if I'm married, if I have kids, if this is what I want to be doing, maybe I just want to be a consultant. Maybe I just want to be creating just marketing initiatives for companies, right? Those types of things. Like, I like business and marketing more than I like anything else when it comes to the overall realm of what I do. Fantasy sports, I love it. It's a passion. But the idea of building a business and using marketing, creating content, all of those things, I can kind of take those skill sets and put them onto any area where I have passions. Yes, fantasy sports is my passion. I really enjoy exercising. I really enjoy cooking. I really enjoy traveling. I really enjoy all these things, business, finance, all those types of things, right? So I think that just the skill sets that I've learned, and this is for anybody watching this, you can continue to put onto and figure out how to apply them to other things. And the skills that I've learned, business, marketing, finance, budgeting, bookkeeping, content creation in so many different forms, social media branding, that can be put onto anything. It's just a matter of having the actual understanding of the industry you're going into, like I do right now for fantasy. Yeah, this is just June. July, I'll come back and do a video. I know this is later in the month. By the time I post it, it might be like mid-month. My birthday was at the end of the month. The beginning of July came, I was traveling a little bit, and I just ended up putting it off. So it's out right now. So what we ended up doing was having about a $500 increase in overall income, gross income. After the expenses, it was like $100 or $60 less than last month, but that's just because I spent more money this month, mainly coming from Patreon actually accounting for their site fees. And then also just website costs, paying my contractor about $1,000. And then the other thing I want to touch on is right now in the fantasy industry, I've had people reach out to me about some things. I've had people reach out to me about coming onto some of the new sites that you're seeing popping up in the industry. I'm very honored, and I've had conversations with those people. But I think that it's awesome the way that the site's growing, or the industry is growing. A lot of these sites do the same thing. And I put this in one of our newsletters. And they do similar things to what I do. You provide content, you provide some tools. What I have is a way to get my message out a lot easier, get my brand on it. Like when I'm making my videos, you guys and girls know who I am, right? You trust me, or at least I believe you trust me for what I do. I put a lot of work up front into those videos, and I know that I do. And then I put additional content for the people that want to support me over there onto my Patreon, or onto what's going to hopefully be in the future loaded onto my website, how we get that transferred over in the next few months or a year, right? That's the type of stuff. That's sort of like a bonus for me, right? I make money through advertisers, and then over there on Patreon, although it's a big source of my revenue, it's for the people who really want to support me, who believe in what I'm doing, who know me, and don't just stop by for one video. People who stop by for one video, that's fantastic. Love the fact that you view these videos. But those are the people that probably don't buy some of my Patreon stuff, and that's fine. But for these sites that are popping up, a lot of the sites are mainly like working off of Twitter followings. They might be just starting up a podcast, But man, it is very, very difficult to have a long-term plan or anything like that when you just work off of like a Twitter following. I think having a podcast, a YouTube channel, something like that is going to be very important for a lot of these sites popping up. And I think that they do, but I also think that a lot of them are offering similar things. I'm not going to name any sites. I mean, every single site that you see out there right now in the fantasy space is doing the exact same thing. At the end of the day, these sites are awesome. They're giving jobs to people who love what they do. And at the end of the day, I create content, they create content. I like everybody in this industry. I have a working relationship with a lot of people in this industry, and Awesemo is one of them, right? They're part of my contracting revenue each month, and I'm sure we're going to be doing a lot of shows. I think Awesemo is top notch when it comes to the way that they run their business. They have a clear brand, Awesemo, the name, right? Everything about it. Number one player in the world, all that helps a ton, right? But they know how to work things out. Whether it's through the paid advertisement that I see literally everywhere, dumping money into paid advertisement is fantastic. But what's even better is having your organic advertisement as a way around that. So, or to complement it, not even around it. So having a ton of videos on content, on live streams on your show and marketing just straight to your platform, and you keep 100% of the profits, right? Instead of just doing affiliate deals, which you can add on top of that to sponsor the shows. So every single company has to be a media company first. If you are not a media company first, then you're just not going to succeed long term, because companies like Awesemo and whoever else is going to be a media company will. Your job in the fantasy sports industry is not to be, as a business, is not to be first a fantasy sports content creator company or whatever it might be, right? A fantasy sports company or just a sports betting company. That's not your first job. And if it is, you're thinking very short-sighted. You're thinking for the next 3 to 5 years, and that's fine. Like if that's what you want to do, just pile up some money and then retire, depending on your age. That's completely fine. But if you want to be in it for the long run, your job is to be an absolute powerhouse when it comes to being a media company, pumping out content, grinding content. For me, with seeing all these sites open up, it should threaten sites like Awesemo. It should threaten sites that are in that same sphere of being a site with a ton of contractors and employees that are kind of doing the same thing, have some of their own unique abilities. And at the end of the day, it comes down to how good you can market and how good of a media company you are. That's what it comes down to. Now, for me as an independent content creator, I don't feel as threatened. Yes, the industry in general might become more saturated, but I don't really feel as threatened when like a group of like 20 people get together and do something where I'm not competing with them. I make a ton of money just off of sponsorships and affiliates and things like that because I have a pretty big social following on YouTube. And it's very difficult to build a social following on YouTube. Most of these sites that are just starting out, even if they tried very hard, they probably couldn't keep up the consistency nor get the following quick enough to have this type of a social following. So I don't feel as threatened by that. I've had that question come up in terms of like the space getting saturated. I do think it's getting saturated. I do think that people have to start creating products that are different and services that are different. That's what I plan to do when and if I plan to launch and want to stay in this industry long term. Again, have some ideas, but that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I do think that everybody creating content and giving people jobs within this industry is a good person, as long as they're a good person at heart and kind of portray that in their character and ethics. And then I think Awesemo is doing a fantastic job at what they do. Again, I am affiliated with them, but there's a reason I'm affiliated with them. It's not because, I'm not saying this because I'm affiliated with them. I'm affiliated with them because of what they do. I had a couple of companies reach out with the same exact offers, do shows for them, get paid, and go from there. I am being somebody who creates content and is into marketing. I saw exactly what Awesemo was doing. They were pumping out organic content while also using paid platforms and doing it in a good way and had the proper tools and things like that to kind of sell on your back end as your product or service. And just right off the bat, you can tell that they knew what they were doing when it came to creating content. So media company first, that's something that I always continue to preach, something that I'll always continue to do. So I'm excited for what happens in July and August heading into the NFL season. This was my look back at June 2020. I'll probably title it July 2020. I think that I'm looking for contractors, although like not multiple, maybe just one person, whether it's something for on-camera personality, if there's experience there, or a combination of that with some sort of editing experience. I edit maybe like for an hour to 2 a day. Like I don't want to be doing that. I get up really early, like 4 a.m. So like I'm done with a lot of my upfront work by like 8 or 9 a.m. and that's pretty cool. But I need to be not spending 1 or 2 hours a day just editing videos, which doesn't really push the needle forward. Sure, it obviously gets the videos up there and they push the needle forward, but the actual editing process can be worked out. Me being on the camera can't be worked out. Now in like once a week it can, but long term it can't, right? I am my brand. I am my personal brand. But at the end of the day, there is some other things that can be worked out, including the editing, which can clear 1 to 2 hours. Like if I shoot 5, 6 videos in a span of 4 or 5 days, right? And I load up some content for the next week. If I send those 6 videos to somebody and they can spend a day or 2 editing them, I pay that person. Perfect. I don't got to spend 10 hours editing those videos for that week. And I can do a lot better things, even if it's just relaxing, right? Or taking a little bit of a vacation. The other thing that is important to me is for the NBA. I do projections every single day. I want to keep creating NBA content. I want to focus around NFL and golf primarily, and I would like to make NBA content. Maybe not every day moving forward, but I would like to continue to, because 1, it's a moneymaker, 2, I love the NBA, and 3, it's just fun. But I can't be putting out projections every single day, which is the thing that keeps you up in the industry. People want their tools and projections every day, and you should. But putting up projections every day is wildly crazy, like right? I have to be at my computer for the NBA from literally like 5:30 to 8 o'clock at night, hoping that somebody's hamstring isn't hurt last second so that I can update the projections so that what people are paying for, they get. And that's what I've done the last 2 years. And yeah, it does impact your personal life, your social life, and who wants to be at their computer every single day for months from 6 to 8 p.m.? Not me, right? I mean, some people might. And if you are somebody like that, reach out to me so you can just update your own projections. So I'm going to try and look into see either if I just don't do projections, which is it's just at that point, it's just making a hedge on the fact that I'd rather have more leisure time, or pay somebody to do projections for me, and I'll continue to do the videos in that way. So those are some other business ideas that I have, kind of all over the place in this one, but I'm just kind of spewing my thoughts. I just wanted to do this randomly. I had a couple extra minutes today as I did a stream yesterday with Peter Overzet, so I'm going to use that as a content piece, so I don't have to do another video today to backlog. We're scheduled out to the first week of August, so about 3 weeks in advance. I'm scheduled on NFL videos, which is exactly my goal. So when the NBA starts back up, I'm all set up for NFL season. Don't have to put any more season-long content out there. So thank you. Appreciate you tuning in. Again, if you don't like the setup here because the camera's back, maybe it's a little bit darker, that's fine. I'm making this video for myself, and if you get any benefit from it, even better. So comment down below what you think of this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you're somebody who can help maybe on some of the NBA projections and or in like the on-camera personality. I'm not looking for somebody who has no on-camera personality. If you don't have any on-camera personality, or you don't have any in this space, right? Understanding how to make things sound good and look good and all those types of things and no editing, that's fine. Like if you have experience there, reach out to me. If you don't, I'm sorry, but I don't want to take time training somebody at this point, at least where I'm at right now. And if I did take time to do that, I'd probably just have my brother or cousin do it. So appreciate you. Thank you all. And I'll see you in the next one.